Hello there, everybody. Well, we're back. I say we're back. We never really went away. But here's a new little project we're going to have a look at. And it's something with a little bit of a theme that we're all into around here, which is Star Trek. Now, this model is the leader of one of the factions from the core set of the Star Trek Away Missions board game. It is, of course, Stance himself, Commander Riker. Now, these are really rather nice little models. The whole series is quite good. They're quite cartoony and chibi in style. So the thought we had was to do them in a comic book style. So this is going to be the first part of our series on painting in a comic book style, which is one that's a little bit new to myself, so I'm going to give it a go. And we thought, what better one to start with than the Commander himself. So what we've done first of all is, of course, cleaned up the model, as usual, just taking any mould lines off. There weren't too many on here. And then we've sprayed it with all over white, keep it nice and bright. We did sort of go a little bit of zenithal. That's when you spray it from the top down, just to make sure that extra pigment lands on the top surfaces. But other than that, he's all ready to go. Now, the thing you notice with comic book style colourings and painting schemes is that it is a very, very stark shading. And there's two ways in it. You can either start and colour it and then shade it dark, or do the shading and then colour over the top. So I think what we're going to experiment with on this one is we're going to put in the shading first, and then we're going to colour over the top with some speed or contrast paints and see what sort of effect that gives us. So let's make a start, first of all. Now we're just going to use our usual Element Games regiment style brush. Other brushes are of course available, but I find this is a really good one for all manner of projects. It holds a decent amount of paint, it takes a good tip and holds a good tip, and is good for all manner of size miniatures. Quite literally, I've done 40mm down to 6mm with the same brush and had a good effect. Now what we're using for the first stage, we're going to do some black shading, essentially. And what I'm using today, I'm going to use some Pro Acryl Coal Black, a good basic black flavoured black. And I'm just going to put a bit of that on the brush, showing you the state of my wet palette at the moment, because as my good friend Harry would tell you, it's an absolute shambles. But it's enough for what we need to do here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put this black in the area that's between any areas where there's going to be colour. Now, as we know, Starfleet uniforms of this period, the Next Generation era, are going to be predominantly black themselves, but with bold red areas in the arms and, of course, the front and back panels. So, what I'm going to do is, where the model is conveniently got little indentation, I'm just going to put a line like that. That's going to very starkly highlight the gap between the red panel and the black panel. And we do that under, oops, a bit mucky. I'm going to do it around the belt area as well, like that. And we're going to go in the crease of the trousers. And anywhere where there's a crease, we're also going to do that. I'm going to try and keep it. I've done a great job there. We'll go again a little bit better. What I'm going to do is just try and make it as tidy but as obvious as possible. So I can obviously go around and neaten these up with a bit of white afterwards. So let's get right into the shaded areas there. Of course, the underneath the boot. Underneath the boot. Oops, that's not quite going as I need it. Okay, that's kind of the effects we're looking for there. Imagine on a comic book, the artist will certainly make sure that the differences between two areas of colour are starkly pointed out with a black line. And there may be some little tricks we'll use later on just to provide a little bit of shading as well, make it look like a comic artist has tried to shade it, or put some shading in as well. I think through there, underneath a bit there. There we go. It does look a little bit like a zebra at the moment. That's a little neater. There we go. Yeah, as this is the first stage, of course, anything that's not quite neat, we will just tidy up with a little bit of pure white later on. Again, the AK Colours Bold Titanium White is a favourite for that one. Very good white. Probably the best one you can get, actually. I think I wouldn't really bother with any other brilliant whites unless you had a particular favourite yourself. Certainly one that I've come to enjoy and use on a lot of projects. Around the shoulder area where the black continues around the shoulder pad. This was the 1980s after all. Let's go underneath that area as well, just to continue the shading. Bring that round a bit, and we'll do where his cuff meets his hand as well. Boldy going with some bold colour choices. I think we'll probably do a grey effect on the phaser, but yet again we will still undershade all the areas on that. We'll just pick out the blocks and then neaten it later. Let's go across the top. Let's do around the back of the collar as well. Right, let's just do along the bottom of the boots. There's a slight texture to his basing. I think what we'll do is we'll probably do a sort of a beige shading there, because on this particular board game, a lot of the boards are either are reversible. They're Starfleet decks on one side and sort of interior of a Borg ship the other, because the theme of the base set of Star Trek Away Missions is Battle of Wolf 359, where Riker and his team are facing off against Locutus and his team of Borg to recover stolen or remaining artefacts and technologies on board. Right, well, for the moment, I'm going to leave that there, and then we'll go over it in a moment and neaten and tidy that up, and then we'll look at doing some base colours, certainly on the clothing, and then we'll look at the flesh, face and hands separately. So, with a little bit of careful lining, that's where we're up to. Now, I've also gone around with the white and just neatened up the lines where I can. But if you look, basically everywhere where there is a shadow or connection between two areas of colour, we've basically put a black line. Now also, I've done a bit around his face as well, just to make a start with that, and rather over-accentuated the lines in the hair as well. Now what I've also done is, at recommendation of some people who promote this style, like little hatch markings just in areas underneath where it's a bit of shade, which should look a little bit like there's some shading there. And we've done on the back as well, just in the small of the back there, or just between the shoulder blades, underneath the arms, and of course underneath the trousers as well. So on balance, that looks like he's just about ready to have some red put over the top, and we'll see how that uniform starts to pop.